Welcome to Stop the Fight, episode 16. And today we're talking about this weekend's fights with Jose Pedraza and Shakur Stevenson. Let's go.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece. No.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong man, good boy, just.
Our main event, Shakur Stevenson, the undefeated 15-0, 8 knockouts prodigy, is fighting Gervonta Davis, 21-1 with 17 KOs. Now, this fight, I think, is a little bit more intriguing than people want to give it credit. So, obviously, Shakur Stevenson is our pound-for-pound talent. He is the Andre Ward prodigy, sort of. He is, he has everything. Speed, boxing ability, but he doesn't quite have some pop. Although that can, of course, be explained due to age. But similar to Haney, were he a puncher, we would already see it. Shakur Stevenson is not a puncher. He has enough, I think, to keep people honest. He had a KO 2 fights ago against Felix Cabarrallo. But generally speaking, Shakur Stevenson is not going to be a puncher. He's going to have the Haney problem. He may run into people who can just walk him down if he cannot get their respect. Now, outside of that, he's a supreme talent. He is lightning quick. His defensive game is superb, just superb. He rarely gets touched, if at all, whenever he fights. So I think he's on the cusp of the pound-for-pound list. Obviously, this fight's not going to do it, but he is on the cusp. He needs a champ. He needs, who just fought? Oh, my God. Just fought Burcheld. Why can't I remember? Oscar Valdez. Yeah, he needs an Oscar Valdez. He needs a Burcheld. He needs a Jamal Herring, to really get his name out there. But I think he's probably the best in the class, bar Oscar Valdez. That would be the fight that would be interesting to see, and the fight that I think is really his only challenge at 130 pounds. So over here, though, he is fighting Gervonta Davis. Now, Davis, he's from Namibia. He's 31 years old, and he's a bit of a puncher, right? I told you, he's got 17 KOs. Now, I'll be honest. I've only seen highlights of his fights, but his last, let me count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. His last 10 fights, he's won by knockout. So if there's going to be an upset here, it's going to be probably by Jeremiah by KO. Do I think he'll KO Shakur Stevenson? Not a chance. I think Shakur Stevenson's defense is too good, but I think this is a live dog in many senses. And if we're, as bettors, again, guys, this is not financial advice. Please, you're all grown people. You make your own bets. This is just speculation on my end. But if you look at the odds, the over 8.5 is actually a plus 100. Now, the under 8.5 is a minus 134. Now, I don't know what the bookies are thinking here, but putting the under 8.5 at minus 130, you believing the fight is going to end before the 1 minute and 30 seconds in the 9th round. But Shakur Stevenson is not the KO puncher. Jeremiah is. Is the casino assuming that Jeremiah stops this early? I think there's a little bit of a mismatch. Now, here's something. You know how I always say on this podcast that on their very first fight, I will always bet against the British Isle fighter, just until they have proven themselves. Well, just watching the fight game for the past 15 years, I've noticed that fighters from Africa have an indomitable will. They don't go out and they'll go down easily. I, in no way, shape, or form, expect Jeremiah to go down. I don't think Shakur Stevenson stops him. So I think that under 8.5 at minus 130 is a ridiculous odd. And that sets up, I think, for us for an easy plus 100 over 8.5 on this fight. That means this fight goes to, again, the 1 minute and 30 second in the 9th round. And I think that's really a very reasonable outcome. If you believe, as I do, that Shakur Stevenson is an amazing boxer, which he is, has amazing hand speed, has amazing foot speed, has amazing defense. All those things are true. But I also believe that Jeremiah, who's never been stopped before, and hasn't been in there with some pretty strong Eastern Europeans, has never been stopped before. You think he's going to get stopped by Shakur Stevenson? I don't think so. He's only 31 years old. You know, this is still a young fighter, not too much wear and tear on him. I don't see him folding quickly. I don't know what the casinos are betting here. Also setting it up, like I understand the plus 1,000. You know, if you wanted to bet against Shakur Stevenson, Shakur Stevenson is a prohibitive favorite, and Jeremiah is given a plus 1,000. So I would not personally bet on Jeremiah for plus 1,000, but I don't think it's the worst bet. Simply because this is a power puncher. There's not much tape of him to study. He's gotten everyone out there. You know, Shakur Stevenson has had a few, I would say, soft touches. You know, like he hasn't. It's not so much that he's been fed bums; it's that he hasn't necessarily fought the top of 130 pounds, the light super featherweight, whatever you want to call it, lightweight, junior lightweight. So, you know, they're saying Shakur minus 5,000. Obviously, that's if you take it with a tie included, but minus 10,000 outright. That's a ridiculous bet. No one's betting $10,000 to win 100 on Shakur Stevenson. That's prohibitive. The plus 1,150 on Jeremiah. Again, Shakur Stevenson is so good defensively that a fighter like Jeremiah, who seems a little crude based on what I've seen, is not going to land at him. At least I don't think it's the likely outcome. I think that really leaves the over 8.5, which is plus 100, as our only real source of money making. That's really not bad. You bet 100, you win 100. That's really not a bad look. I think the casinos have mispriced this. Like I said, Shakur Stevenson doesn't really stop people. He doesn't have that kind of pop. I do have my own bias with African fighters. I believe that they seem to have amazing chins and last a long time. So that's going, again, has more in favor of it making to 8.5. So my personal opinion here is this fight is absolutely going the distance. Or, you know, if you wanna throw some beer money at it, you know, I think Jeremiah, it's in the realm of possibility that he gets the knockout. You know, his only loss came years ago, actually 11 fights ago, against Yevgeny Chuprakov. He was outboxed by a majority decision. I didn't see the fight. I'm not gonna swear by it or anything like that. But you know, he's been fighting at 130 for at least what looks like to be 11, 12 fights. So this is a person who's gonna be comfortable at this weight, who has a sizable knockout ratio and who's never been knocked out. I don't see why a light puncher such as Shakur Stevenson is gonna be the one to knock him out. Now, of course, you know, Shakur Stevenson is gonna be in there to look good. He's brought in these opponents to look good, and there's nothing wrong with that. But does he get him out? That's really all we're questioning, us as bettors, and I don't believe he does. Or if he does, it's going to be late. Or if someone gets someone out, I really think Jeremiah has a way bigger chance to get Shakur out of there than Shakur has a chance to get Jeremiah out there. So I like the over 8.5 at plus 100 in this fight. Now, again, let's talk about Shakur Stevenson some more. So obviously, his real test over here would be Oscar Valdez. That is the fight, I think that's to be made at 130 pounds. There really is nobody else over here. You know, Jamal Herring is a good fighter. He recently had that awesome upset over Carl Frampton. And Burchell is a good fighter, but he was just knocked cold by Oscar Valdez. I don't see any of those fighters, not Tevin Farmer, not really any of these fighters giving Shakur any problems whatsoever. I think this is one of the weaker, outside of, this is one of the weaker divisions. Outside of Valdez, there really is nobody at this division. So I expect eventually a Valdez fight hopefully to be made. I don't know who wins, but assuming Shakur Stevenson wins, he has to go up then to the best division, which is our lightweight division. And I think over there he's going to have a little bit of problems. He does not, I don't think he has enough pop to truly keep some of these fighters honest. And up there you're going to have Teofimo. You know, with Lomachenko, we already saw, you have to have enough of power to keep him away for you to bank enough rounds. So then when he starts to outbox you, you've already have enough in the bank, like with Teofimo. So, again, well, he's a southpaw, so we'll see. So, like I said, that's my take on the Shakur Stevenson, Jeremiah Nakathila fight. And the other fight this weekend that I'm kind of interested in is the Jose Pedraza versus Julian Rodriguez fight. It's taking place at 140 pounds. Now, Jose Pedraza is 28-3, 13 knockouts, 1 loss by KO. His 3 losses have been notable. Very first loss was a 7th round knockout at the hands of Gervonta Davis. Nice knockout. You know, it looked like he was doing quite well, and Gervonta looked a little bit lethargic at points in that fight. But, you know, once he started to find those openings, it was over. Then he was walked down, outboxed, and kind of, you know, beat up by Lomachenko. He did well early on, but once Lomachenko figured out his angles, it was over. Yeah, he kind of takes over. But that's Lomachenko in every fight, even with Teofimo. The second half of the fight, Lomachenko won majority of those rounds, a large majority. Now, he then goes on to lose to Jose Zapata in quite a close fight, actually. I know it was 97-93 all the way through, but I thought it was, you know, I thought Jose Pedraza, he did well the entire time. And in his last fight, he outboxed Javier Molina. Now he's fighting the undefeated 21-0, 14 knockout Julian Rodriguez, who is an orthodox fighter, about the same, an inch taller than Pedraza. And he's been kind of, his last two fights has ended before the third round. He got a TKO in one against Anthony Loreno, and Jose Lopez was stopped in the third. So this kid definitely has a little bit of pop. He's 26 years old, so he's about 6 years younger than than Pedraza. And he seems, from the highlights that I've seen of him, as a pretty good fighter. Now, the casinos here, I'm sitting this one out. Well, I don't know if I'm so much just sitting this one out, or I don't feel comfortable about this one. I think they priced it quite right. Jose Pedraza is a plus 170, and Julian Rodriguez is a minus 240. The over-under is, the over 8.5 is at minus 270, and the under 8.5 is a plus 200. Now, Julian Rodriguez has shown enough pop to worry someone like Pedraza, and Pedraza has, like I said, has gotten stopped before, but it seems like I can't get a handle on this fight. Pedraza seems to, there are moments where Pedraza looks really good. And even against Gervonta Davis and against Lomachenko, there were moments where he looked like a slick boxer who, if he can keep this going, he can have a competitive fight against both fighters. He could not keep it going, but he flashed that kind of, I want to say, magic, that boxing magic, that pugilist kind of craft that he has in him. Does he still do it at 32? Can he do it for long enough to make it over 8.5? I don't know. I don't like the over-under here. I think it's too risky. You know, we've seen him. He was nearly stopped, by the way, also in the Lomachenko fight in the 11th. So that fight could have easily been stopped by the ref. So with a heavy puncher, a natural 140-pounder. Remember, also another thing you guys have to remember is that Pedraza is not a natural 140-pounder. He's actually moved up twice now. He was fighting at 130, then he moves up to 135. So he gets knocked out by Gervonta Davis at 130, loses to Lomachenko and Zapata at as long as Lomachenko at 135, and loses to Zapata at 140. So this is a kind of an, I don't want to say undersized, but yeah, let's use that term, an undersized 140-pounder fighting against Julian Rodriguez here, who seems to have a little bit of pop and who's a natural 140 pounds. He's never fought below 140 pounds. So I think actually the under 8.5 is a reasonable bet here. So you wouldn't be faulted for taking it. Will I take it? I don't know, maybe. I may even sit this one out. Like, again, I don't always like to bet on fights which I don't have a strong feeling towards. Like the Shakur Stevenson fight, I really believe is going over 8.5. Or there's a potential for an upset. But this fight, I don't know one way or the other. It seems like I will be strictly guessing. I do like the under 8.5. I think choosing either Pedraza or Rodriguez is the casino priced it right. Pedraza does seem to be about a 2-to-1 dog against Rodriguez here. Again, due to the fact that he's going to be the naturally smaller guy and Rodriguez has some pop. Can Pedraza last 8.5? 9? I don't know. I don't think so. So if you put a gun to my head, the under the 8.5. That's what I'm taking. Now, let's talk about Billy Joe Saunders has given an interview saying he's 50-50 on fighting again. Doesn't rule out retiring and gives Canelo props for landing the shot that he did. Said it was a real shot. So, what can we say about this? Now, I think Billy Joe he's always been a slightly underwhelming fighter. That's just the truth. His victory over Martin Murray, his victory over Willie Monroe Jr., his victory over Andy Lee have all been so meh. You never quite knew, like, outside of his victory over Lemieux, you wouldn't even consider the Canelo fight to be even worthy of taking, outside the fact that he had an O and a superfluous belt. You know, what is Billy Joe's career? Beating Gary O'Sullivan? Chris Eubank Jr.? When Eubank Jr. is still clearly improving? Like, what? When we talk about Billy Joe Saunders, I don't mean to knock him, but this is what I mean about British fighters. What are we basing it on? Yeah, the Lemieux win was good, but we know Lemieux's kind of a pylon who, if you sit in front of, he'll knock you out, but if you start moving, then he has a lot of problems. I mean, Lemieux was derailed the second someone fought back against him as a prospect. He had monstrous knockouts, and then somebody fought back. And that was it. He would gas, and once you figure out his pattern of attack, that's it. Again, Lemieux was a good fighter. And what Billy Joe did that night against Lemieux was probably the performance of his career. But what about every other fight? You start to wonder what it is about Billy Joe Saunders. If you just look at his fights, even against the John Ryder fight, you know, these are all close decisions. Billy Joe could have easily been not 30-0, but 26-4. And we would have never spoke about a Billy Joe. He just trash talked his way into a fight. And congratulations, he got paid. That's what you can hope for as a fighter. You get paid. As Canelo said in the post-fight interview, interview with Andre when they got to that fight. He goes, "Oh yeah, you just want to get paid." And that's really what I mean. Like, you can't fault a fighter for trying to get paid. And he did a great job. He made a lot of money, Billy Joe Saunders did, riding that Tyson Fury gypsy style thing. But as a fighter, he was extremely, I feel, underwhelming. His career is, anyway. So if he retires at 31, I think it'll be, some people, maybe on the British Isles, would be like, oh, it's a what if. You know, he was really good. If it wouldn't be the eye break, blah, 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 blah. I will always remember Billy Joe as another British Isle fighter. Extremely overrated for a long time. The second he really stepped up that game against real pound-for-pound number ones and real, like, world-class fighters, he was stopped. His career was ended. That's how I'm gonna view him. Absolutely. He would have been a bit like a Gary Lockett character. You know, he came in that Pavlik fight 30-1 with 21 knockouts, and he only lost a close split decision. But it's not so much that Billy Joe Saunders is a bad fighter. He's not. He's a good fighter. He just gets overrated by the British fans to such extremes. They're such extremes that it becomes like a British Isle hype job. You know, how many British fighters have faltered at that level? How many times? Most recently, of course, was Dillian White getting knocked out by Povetkin like that. He got lucky he got that rematch against the aged Povetkin. But he would have left a legacy, Billy Joe Saunders, of not achieving enough. Not achieving enough. Given his talent. I mean, I do think he was talented. He boxed really well against Canelo. I did have him up, I think he was maybe up a round or two. You're clearly in there. Clearly. Doing well, but, you know, he took that. I mean, it's Canelo. He said in the interview, Billy Joe says, oh, this is, he's an extremely tricky fighter. And I don't doubt it at all. I don't doubt it at all that he is a superbly tricky fighter. And one who is, you know, who's clearly wearing the pound-for-pound number one mantle, unlike Crawford, who is still, I don't know, doing God knows what, while Spence is building his legacy and Pacquiao is cementing his. Crawford is still, well, I don't know, fighting literally who? Speaking of, you know, I mentioned him earlier in the podcast, but Gervonta Davis is actually going up to 140. That's crazy. 140 pounds to fight Mario Barrios, undefeated. That's actually quite something. He's going to be 5 inches shorter than Barrios. You know, I don't know what the team advising Gervonta Davis is doing, but eventually size matters. You know, we just watched this weekend Floyd fight against a fighter that was so much bigger than him, weighed so much more, and was just so much more of an imposing stature that it really shows you that there is a reason why weight classes exist in boxing. Lomachenko's finding this out the hard way, by the way. Weight classes exist. They're real. Yes, they are a social contract, but one that has very physical manifestations. So here he is, going up to 140, giving up 5 inches of height. 4.5. We'll see. I mean, look, I love fighters chasing to be great, but within reason. After a while, it becomes unreasonable. And you're not chasing greatness, you're chasing stupidity. Chasing your own ego. One that chases you to the ground. Well, that's going to do it for me. This was a short episode. You know, I have a busy week. I actually want to catch the Clarissa Shields MMA fight right now. I'm not talking about it because it's an MMA fight, and I'm not going to talk about MMA fights on this channel, really, at all. So, again, that's going to do it for me. It's the over 8.5 in the Shakur Stevenson fight with a possible upset on by Jeremiah Nakathila, and the under 8.5. Again, this one I'm not sure of. This one's just like one of those gun in my head choices with Julian Rodriguez in the under 8.5 against Jose Pedraza. That's it. It's over.
I'm gonna go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
And she's strong, man, good boy, you know, just.